Welcome to Triggy the Love Triangle. My name is Chloe Garcia. I am student number 222570361. I'm just going to demonstrate my application and go through some of the design considerations that I put into it when I was writing it. Quick demonstration. It's a triangle solver. It basically allows you to type in triangle data and it'll solve it for you. So in my design, some of the concepts I've used, enumerations to identify text boxes. I also used structs for to collect groups of constant string values. I use methods within that to return those as an array, so I could loop through them later. I've got fields within the form class. One field per text box, one field per label, one field per button. These are internal rather than public because they only need to be visible within the assembly. I've got a list of text boxes, 3 instances of my opposing pair class, which defines the triangle, the triangle solver class, which solves the triangle, and the work area class, which displays the triangle. I've got my form main, which basically builds the form, sets up the text boxes using the out keyword, so that function will define the text box, get the name from the array, get the label from the array, define the text box, give it a font and a size, assign the label, the same thing, assign key press handlers, as well as enter key up, assigns the font. Depending on which position it is, it'll then assign a position, whether it's near the middle on the left or the bottom on the right, because all of these need to be located in a different spot on the form. Where were we? After we set the text boxes up, then I loop through all of those text boxes in the array, loop through them, add them to the list of controls in the form, likewise for the labels. Then I set up each button in a similar way, using the out keyword again to define the button, and I've also got an overload function of the same thing, which also has a parameter for another button, and that's called button above. So each button is set up below the button above. So when we go back here again, so I set up my solve button, and then below that I have my clear button below the solve button, and then I have my rotate button below the clear button. That way I can locate them all fairly easily. Set up the list box on the right hand side, add those controls to the form, make the accept button the solve button, so when you push enter it solves it, when you hit escape it clears it. Then I define a new instance of opposing pair using the 2 text boxes, side A and angle A, and then B is for angle B and side B, and C is angle C and side C, and that links the text boxes to the opposing pair class, which allows the functions to work to solve the triangle using trigonometry. Then I assign those pairs to the triangle solve class, and then I assign that triangle solve class to the work area class to display the triangle, and then I invalidate, which calls on paint, and then that draws the work area and the triangle. So that's how we get this. So we have our text boxes and labels located, my list box on the side, and my 3 buttons, one below the other. Alright, now I'm going to give a real quick rundown of some of the classes that I've got. I've got a few more structs and enumerations in here to define a few things. I've got my angle class, which has got degrees and radians, and when you set degrees it converts it to radians, and when you set radians it also converts it to degrees, which allows me to set the degrees and then use the radians without any additional calculations. I've also got a length class, which allows me to set or get a value, but then I can also get the squared version of that value, which returns the value to the power of 2, because these equations are used quite frequently in trigonometry calculations. The class that does a lot of the heavy lifting is my opposing pair class. It's the ratio between the vertex angle and the opposing side that allows you to calculate other information in the triangle using the known values. So that's why I've got my opposing pair class, because it has one angle and one length of the opposing sides. It also has a field for the text box, so that you can actually, when I type in a number, it can assign that value into that field. I've got a few checking methods to make sure things are defined. I've got my constructors here, so you can define it using or with providing a text box. You can also copy one with an existing instance, which we'll see later, but the main algorithms are found here. So I can get the angle once I've provided 2 other angles, or I can get the side by providing another opposing pair, and then I can solve this opposing pair using another instance of itself, and then that's how I get my calculations to work. And that's the same with it's overloaded in a number of instances to get different information based on different inputs, and that's how I've got a few get angles, a few get sides, and using different trigonometry equations based on what information is available at the time. Okay, finally my triangle solver class. This is the one that brings all of the elements together. So I've got 3 opposing pairs, and in my when I click the button, I've got my triangle solver class called triangle. It gets the text box values, which stores the information into my 3 opposing pairs, and then assuming provided the information is deemed sufficient, it goes through and it attempts to solve using using any one of these methods. And if that works, then it doesn't need to solve it using another method, but if one of these doesn't work, it moves on to the next one and tries to solve it in another way until it finally gets to the end using one of the solve algorithms. Now, these solve algorithms don't actually solve the triangle, they simply call on the get side or get angle functions that are contained by the opposing pair class. So these solve functions just put the information in the right order to make these solve functions effective. And then that information gets passed back into the triangle class, which then sets the remaining text boxes, creates a copy of the triangle for the work area, and then displays it, and then invalidates the bounds to force the onPaint method to redraw the triangle. And that's basically how you get a triangle on your screen when you type in a few numbers. Bang. Thank you.